So Misty, high fructose corn syrup. You know a lot. Yeah, you know a lot about how the industry was hijacked by them back in the 70s, and you're gonna give us a little bit of information on that with people's names and why it happened and all that. And I'm super excited to hear about that. I've heard about it before, but it's been probably about 15, 20 years ago that someone wanted to talk to me about that, and I wasn't really ready to hear it because it sounded kind of like a conspiracy theory, and I wasn't into conspiracy theories then. So a lot of those conspiracy theories come to truth. So
yeah, talk to your conspiracy theorist friends. We're not doing okay right now.
right. So tell us how tell us a little bit about the history of high fructose corn syrup and how it got into our foods, and it's it's in a lot of our foods.
Well, it was invented in Japan in 1966, and I'm not quite sure what happened between 66 and 75, but that's when it was introduced to our market. And basically, Nixon was worried about the food prices going up and down and not being stable, and so he got his boy Earl Butz to figure out a solution for that problem because he didn't want to lose the election. So his solution was to just make food really cheap. They really didn't think about any kind of health problems or anything from it. They just wanted to make it cheap and keep the elections. So here we go, high fructose corn syrup and making food out of buildings instead of pulling it out of the ground or where it's supposed to come from. And high fructose corn syrup is super cheap. And processed foods, the way that they keep it stable is they take all of the fiber out of it. Well, if you take fiber out of it and everything else, and the chemicals you put in there, it's going to taste horrible. So what do? Throw a bunch of cheap high fructose corn syrup in there so that it's palatable and stick a label on it that says low fat, because if we all know who Ansel Keys is, then you know how that started. And then people just bought it. They fell into it. And, here we are years later, and people are sick and then of course it started traveling the world, countries that didn't have problems with these inflammatory diseases and metabolic syndromes. Now they are, and it's following high fructose corn syrup and packaged foods.
Yeah, and when you look at it, I mean, you think about the 70s and the 80s, it was all about low fat, and carbs were good, and fortunately, I think a lot of us are coming around to that. Unfortunately, there's so many processed foods. Most processed foods are so high. Yeah, they're so high in carbohydrates, and so many people are literally addicted to them that it's hard to get away from them. Janet,
sugar and carb addiction is real. It's very real.
Well, I also think that there's such a difference as to how you feel versus something that's natural that comes from the ground versus something that comes from a box. Because, let's face it, an apple, once you're done eating that, you're full. You can eat, how many bars, how many cookies, how many bowls of cereal without feeling the same. So, it interacts in our body differently. So
it does. It blocks leptin and
it
causes other hormonal issues that make you feel like you're just not even satiated. So you want to eat more of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think as a species, we want to eat until we feel full. And if we're not full, then it's like, okay, what else do I have in my pantry or my refrigerator? And if we're not shopping the external part of the grocery store or going and getting fresh foods, then, those long-lasting packages on the shelf are probably really starving our bodies. I mean, we're getting calories, but we're starving ourselves from other nutrients and actually feeling healthy and good.
It's not even good calories at that point, though.
Yeah.
Really, it's not.